This product.
How did your teaching go? Good. We were gonna come visit you. Dr. Fine was like, it's her first day teaching, we should go.
This one was sick. This one was like, I know this guy.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
3 months.
There is no recovery.
And I just tried it, and there was already one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never happened.
I've never seen it because mine is remote.
Well, even with like the case we just did, right? The Rose and the rebranding after the homophobic comments and shit.
I mentioned
I'm actually very Actually, I thought you Because the Ravens play Chiefs tonight,
Me too.
so I work tomorrow.
But I only work 17 hours a week, so I could go in. But I'm not going to. I didn't
Yeah.
Steve Jeffrey. I know he loves something.
Kim said, you didn't like my message. And I was like, I'm not in that.
What?
For whatever he needed more ideas for some.
The chapter
I
took chapter 4 today.
Nobody responded to Kim.
I'm not in it.
I did take 4, I got 100.
Our office was like, neither of you responded. Okay, so we rejected him.
I didn't respond to you.
I sent him like a list of things that he could do. Well, he already said that they had it, so I told him like, what did I say? Digital customer service, green IT, which is like sustainable.
Rachel said that she complained that she's going to complain already. Rachel?
Okay, sorry. Just suggestions, cybersecurity, remote work and collaboration.
It's hard. Didn't take the quiz.
Some of them. But green IT sounds
It was like,
interesting.
what is the value of the stock?
Sustainability sounds boring. But I feel like that's a good like, intersection for a lot of topics.
Oh no, I took it today though, because I was like, I need to get it. I did.
That's huge.
Yeah. You want to look at it?
Our users
How's everyone doing?
I'll show you during the break.
Welcome, it's good to see you.
I was
Glad
trying
you're
to
here.
get students to want to go, but
It was like, what is the value of the stock after 5 years?
well, they were like, how else can we be involved besides speakers?
Get on board with.
Yeah,
Nobody seemed interested. Didn't even answer my emails. I know, I'm really gonna push on them.
yeah, I don't know. I'll show you the practice. I took the practice a couple times and it felt
Excellent work,
Try. I remember you. See if that works.
Jennifer or Jen? Ellen? Ellen. It's like the ocean. Do you want one of these?
I haven't.
No worries.
For the practice,
Caitlin, right? Okay, all right.
and then when
My eyesight is absolutely horrible.
when I do revision, and then I just
Squinting, but getting there. All right, welcome everybody. It's good to see you. Glad you're here. Welcome back.
And so, have you
This
seen
is week number 3, so we're well underway. I'm excited about this week's topic and this week's material. What we'll do to start with, we'll talk a little bit, just kind of review a little bit, I guess, or step into some of the stuff we were doing last week, and then we'll jump into some new material here today. As I was mentioning to a couple folks, you know, if you're looking at the schedule, you'll notice that next Thursday, and week 4, not this week, but week 4, we take basically a hiatus from the textbook. We don't add any new content or material, but instead on that week we spend time just working on the group projects. So this week, the expectation is, the hope is that I hear from each group and we identify a good product category that you'd like to focus on, and a firm or a company that you'd like to use as well for the stages that we go through. I think I've heard from maybe 4 groups out of 7, something like that. I'll have to check some emails, but confirm that. So if as a group you haven't spoken together yet or worked together yet, you want to do that. And maybe tonight or at some point. You each have the Teams app. If you don't want to use that, you don't have to. You can email each other, whatever you want to do. So, but above all, just let me know if you have any problems or questions. I do indeed want to just hear what you're thinking about, and go from there. I do generally hope not to have any 2 groups do the same product category and the same firm, although we've had certainly classes where some groups do the same company but different product categories and things like that. So there may be a little overlap, but usually there's not much. Y'all have any questions before we get started? Fired up for week 3, right? All right, it's good to see everybody here. And a few new faces. Some folks have been absent because of events and such, so I'm glad you're here too. I want to begin today by, in chapter 2, and then later on in the text, the authors talk about the product life cycle a little bit. And so I want to just kind of revisit that to some extent, and not to a huge degree, but I want to think about a couple things. I'm going to pass around here a couple articles that you had available to you digitally, and we're not going to really read through them all here tonight, but I do want you to have, I printed them, so I figure I got to hand them out, right? It's kind of like one of those things. So if y'all just kind of pass these around, circulate them, there are two pieces here, and we'll come back around to those when we're talking about product life cycles a little bit. Okay, so when we talk about a product life cycle, this is something, again, if you've had a principles class, then you're probably familiar with what it looks like and kind of what it is. I'll walk through those, though. Also, just FYI, in the syllabus, at least in the syllabus, I know this, there is a supplemental Principles of Marketing textbook that is an open source link. It's a link to an open source Principles of Marketing textbook. Not everybody has in the program. Not everybody comes to an MBA program with a business degree, certainly not a marketing degree, and varying degrees of experience in business. So if you're not real comfortable with some of the terms I use, I often just assume folks have a basis of some knowledge in marketing, but if you don't, I apologize. If you don't, there's an open source Principles of Marketing text that's available if you want to just brush up on terms and things like that. So I don't want you to feel like a fish out of water because maybe your background's on marketing or whatever. That resource is there for you. Okay? All right, so the product lifecycle chart or curve is a predictive model, but it's also reflective of sales in a particular product category over a period of time. So you've seen this probably before, I've probably drawn it before, and we have time, and we have sales. Let's see if I can find a slightly better marker here that will work a little bit better, will be a little clearer. And the way it's explained is that over time, sales in a product have 4 distinct stages. There's actually more than 4, but for simplicity, we usually teach it as 4 distinct stages of its life, if you will. And there's a couple things to think about as you look at this. So it goes up, and then it comes around, usually plateaus at some point, and then flattens off. That's not very pretty. Kind of does something like that, and I'm not, you can look at any textbook; it's going to show that. And last week again, remember we talked a lot about product portfolios. So this is where it kind of ties into some of that material. So in a product portfolio space, we look at different products we offer as a company, and oftentimes we want to think about where they each are on their product life cycles. So you may have some products that are in the later stages of their life, some that are in their early stages, some that are in their late, and depending on where they are in that lifespan, if you will, we'll manage them differently. But they also produce different results for the organization, like we learned last week. We know that products that are up here are more profitable, generally speaking. So the products up here, we call them cash cows a lot of the time. They're up here, they're more profitable. Products that are down here are much less profitable because we have to infuse that product with a lot of expenses to promote it and to defend against competitors and things like that. Products that are in the latter stages of the product life cycle are profitable. However, each successive time period results in fewer and fewer sales. So your net revenue from that product decreases, yet it's still profitable. So sometimes students will say, well, what do we do with products here? And the answer is, oh, you want to get rid of them. And maybe what you want to do is stop putting money into them and let them just slowly take their own path. But they're still profitable. And in fact, there are some companies that have lots of products here, and they make lots of money, and they're very stable. By the time a product gets up here and down there, we know exactly how it's going to behave. We know exactly what its sales are going to be. Its demand forecasts are very, very, very predictable. So if you're not risk averse, if you're risk averse, if you're not risk loving, if you like a stable environment, then products down here are pretty happy. You're pretty happy with ones that are like that. And so chapter 11 actually talks a little bit more about something we call diffusion, product diffusion, or sales diffusion, or whatever. And again, not to get too technical or anything, again, chapter 11 will talk about a predictive model, where we can predict this curve. and what it looks like, and we'll talk about it in class too. We'll look at that a little bit more. But just kind of think about the space underneath the curve as the market. And once you kind of reach the end down here, wherever that end is, 100% of the market has, over time, been bought the product in the product category, or what we would call it's fully saturated. The market has been fully saturated once that, and the market's exhausted. There's nobody else out there to buy the product. Now, some of the deficiencies here are the model when it's drawn like this, the line when it's drawn like this, it doesn't always capture or express repeat purchasers. So that adds a little twist. Sometimes, again, it's not easy to depict in one single graph or a picture. Sometimes it also doesn't depict big influxes of new customers or new consumers. So in other words, this curve could actually go up over time and not stay in that one spot. It could move up, it could shift up, in other words. It also doesn't take into account disruptions from technology that might cause demand to change in a certain way. So there are some deficiencies in it, but by and large, what we do is, this is for a product category. This is not an individual company's product. This is not the sales curve for an individual company's product. It's a sales curve for all the companies who offer that product in a product category. That's what the product life cycle curve is, PLC, product life cycle curve. There are lots of reasons why we want to know this. Particularly, we want to know how long we'll have to invest. Remember, when it's in the early stages of introduction, we put lots of money into advertising and kind of developing the concept in the consumer's mind and making the market. You have to make a market for people to buy it. It's very expensive to do that, but once you hit this kind of this part of the growth stage, there's a takeoff stage, and then there's called a shaking out stage, and it's divided up somewhere like that. But once you kind of hit this, there are lots of cool things that happen. So, for instance, we spend a lot of money on advertising here, but after we advertise some, people who bought the product start to talk about their friends about the product, right? And so, after people start talking about it to their friends, like on social media, we don't have to advertise as much. The product kind of organically takes off on its own. So it's kind of a cool thing that happens somewhere in here, right? We want to think about that. Other things that we think about are important are when it starts to peak. Somewhere when it starts to peak, it helps us understand at what time period sales will be at their peak, or at what level, what quantity, and at what time they'll be at their peak. This is important when you think about the industry, like as an industry, think about industry capacity. So like when I launch a product, if it's in the early stages, my factory doesn't have to be that big. It only has to be big enough to satisfy demand at this level. But by the time the product reaches this space up here, as an industry, we need enough capacity to be able to handle that much volume, right? That's sales volume, because I'm selling that many units. That could be a year from now, it could be 20 years from now, just depending on how long this time horizon is. So that's something to think about. Think about mergers, acquisitions, control and capacity, those types of issues. Those all could be, this could help you answer some of those questions if you're managing those types of things like that. If you, for instance, again, as sales grow, your investments grow, your how much you put into infrastructure, it tells you how long you have for that financial outlay you're going to have to make, perhaps. Something like that. So lots of interesting things here to think about. Another element that is sometimes not displayed, which is kind of helpful just to think about. Curves that in the textbook will always look like this. They're always drawn like this. However, they are not always actually shaped like that. I'm just going to draw a couple more here. Sometimes the curve starts out very steep and goes like this. It's not going to look anything like that. It looks like there's been this explosion and then a quick drop off. So if like we're thinking about product categories that would be ones that would come around very quickly and then fade away very quickly. The extreme would be some type of a fad product that has a season, like a seasonal thing, right? And it's popular for the next 3 months and then it's not popular anymore. Now, if you are in that product category, in that space, you've got to be enormously aggressive, right? I mean, your goal is to capture, you look at, again, kind of think about this as a percentage of the market. When you start off, this little introduction stage, this might be 5 to 10% of the total market. By the time there are percentages that kind of space all this out, well, in that same amount of time, you might have 60 to 70% of the market. It just happens very quickly. It's compressed. So you have to act very quickly. You have to be very aggressive. You have to capture the market. This would also perhaps be an example of a product if it has a very low technology or if it's very easily copied. If it's not protected by a patent, if there are lots of competitors who can come out and copy you real quickly, they'll flood the market at a little bit maybe a low cost, high production type of a product, then you're susceptible to this type of competitive pressure. And again, you have to act very quickly. The other type, which I don't really have a lot of space here, I used it all up over there. We'll just do another type. Another type over here is if the product is the opposite, if it takes off real slowly and then kind of begins to go like that and continues on. Real slow takeoff like that, right? That would kind of suggest a very different type of product. Let's say it's a high-tech product that is very, very difficult to duplicate, that you have a lot of patent protections on, that is technologically advanced where competitors can't copy you. It may be a product that the market's not quite ready for. One of the products out there I think of, and I don't know if it's the greatest example, but the Segway, when it came out, it was supposed to end all other transportation forms. It was supposed to replace everything else out there. There was all this hype, all this excitement, and sales just never took off really well. I mean, it has its own, go to a tourist location and you can do Segway tours and stuff like that. But we don't all have Segways, although there may be some here on campus, I don't know. Think about the one group thinking about these personal transportation items, scooters and the motorized skateboards and things like that have done far better as far as capturing market. But the Segway or products that are protected like this, you might also think about products that have a very, very captive audience. The audience has to buy that product. That might be it. And if you're the owner of this, if you are the primary market share holder in this product category, if you're the leader, if you're the pioneer, if you're the one who brought this product out and created a product category, your goal is to go as slow as possible. Because while you're doing this, you're capturing a lot of revenue, and it's a protected market. You don't have any competitors. So this is actually a good thing. You might see maybe some pharmaceutical companies, maybe some of their curves might look like this because of their patent protections. it just kind of depends on how the market takes off and such. But the broader point, I guess, is that this product life cycle curve really does vary by product category and product type. It's always, this is the textbook picture that you're going to see, but this is not what you're going to see in reality very often. If you took lots and lots and lots of products together and you took their average, you look at their average, you average their curves together, then it might look like this. Does that make sense? So, so that's just kind of something to think about. Now, 2 articles that got sent around. Again, those were kind of in your digital package on Moodle last week, and there are a couple things from them. If you look at, and they were both written roughly around the same time, 2008, 2011, somewhere around there. And did everybody get a copy of those? Which ones? Do they have extras? Are there any extras?
Want to eat this one?
Yeah. It might have gotten stuck. Cannibalize your own products. If you don't, someone else will. So again, this is kind of food for thought. Last week, again, we're talking about product portfolios and what you hold in your portfolio as a collection of cash flows or investments from a product perspective. Just about the third paragraph down, or second or third paragraph, they talk about how we often think of cannibalization as a bad thing, and it's true. We can calculate when we launch a new product. We can do an analysis. It's not super difficult to calculate the impact your new product sales will have on an existing product. And what is often thought is if you've got 2 substitute products, person buys your new product, they won't buy your old product. And so you'll lose sales. It's kind of like, think about a bigger company, think of like Procter & Gamble. If they have Tide detergent and they have, I don't know, Dawn detergent, I don't even know another detergent, Ultra, or whatever another washing detergent would be. You got 2 brand managers, one for Tide and one for Ultra. Again, I might be mangling up the brands, but they're in competition with each other. So if Ultra comes out with a new product, it may take away from Tide, even though they're all Procter & Gamble companies. So there's a lot of this tension in companies sometimes across product lines if you have similar products or substitute products happening. And so there's this idea that, but the sales of the new product will bring in new customers. It will better satisfy existing customers. Maybe the new product we have better margins on, maybe. Increased sales will certainly help, and the net difference will be positive. In other words, we'll make more money at the end, even though we're sacrificing or losing sales from our first product that we offer. So, as the person here, the professor was quoted, an important part of business. It is an important part of business. The whole reason is to create a larger revenue stream. Revenue impact of the new product should be greater than the loss of the older product's revenue, which of course makes sense. And this is all part of portfolio management, though. And so one of the decisions is which products do you keep, which do you invest in, which do you fade away, which do you replace purposefully, right? Even further down that same first column. But cannibalization is indeed is needed in technology, consumer products, and autos. All of those products enjoy a period of strong growth followed by flat sales. So remember last week we talked a bit about stagnation. What happens when brand or company sales stagnate? What are the things that we can do to reinvigorate those stagnated or or topped off sales, flat sales, it's very important to have a new product that can make the curve go back up. Said Conley, the best companies continuously manage product portfolios. And so that's kind of this idea of actively managing your portfolio and doing some things about it. So when we look at these curves, again, just kind of walking back into this, there is a strategy which, some people are kind of familiar. So a lot of people look at companies who change their products. Gaming systems that from generation to generation don't always migrate or whatever, right? So sometimes there's these things called planned obsolescence where you use a product for a period of time and the parts no longer are available for it, or the supplies, or they come out with a new software package, but the new software package only is supported by the new hardware that they also sell. So your old hardware doesn't work anymore, because there's no more updates to it. It's a little frustrating from the consumer standpoint because it forces you to buy the new product. And those types of strategies are available to you. But specifically, he mentions this idea, best companies continuously manage product portfolios. It's important to have a new product that can make the curve go back up. And so what they're saying is, look, if this product life cycle is predictable, which it is, the further you move along the product life cycle, the more predictable and the more consistent it is. We know what's going to happen. We know what this is going to look. Even if the curves look like this or that, we can forecast those. And we know what's going to happen. So we know when this point is. We talked about some of the importance of knowing what that point is. What if we preemptively launch a product which we know will induce cannibalization, but with the idea that the product category kind of goes like this? What if we introduce a new product and that new product has its own product life cycle? And so we are willing to sacrifice our old product and essentially the old product sales, prematurely decline, but they're replaced by our new product. So this is product 2, I guess, and we had product 1 here. And we don't allow that curve to diminish or we manage what's going to happen to that curve. So this is like one of these big takeaways. Just because it looks like that, as product managers, our goal is to manage that curve and to try to use strategies, try to think about how we can avoid the plateau and we can continue to grow. The second article, again, these are real short. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I was just thinking about that the model doesn't take into account external environment. So it's just the focus on the product, because when there is like political or economic differences or recessions, for example, I think you cannot predict it like this.
So that's a fair statement. Those global or macroeconomic conditions affect everybody in the product category, not just an individual company. And so what I would also agree with you on is that the effects of this or the shape of this or what happens is very product category dependent as well. So the shape, for instance, and the look of the demand curve or the product life cycle for gasoline is wildly different than what it might be for ice cream or for other products that are not really necessities, something like that. And just what you're saying is a deficiency of models like this. Like I mentioned earlier, it doesn't typically, this picture doesn't typically account for repeat purchasers. It doesn't account for shocks to the market where we have a lot of new customers come in or a lot go away. Doesn't have, like this might be a technological shock. The original model doesn't take that into account either. So no doubt that this needs to be more dynamic and reflective of these things. So yeah, we're in agreement with that, for sure. All right. Article number 2, real quick. Our good friend, Steve Jobs. And again, this article was written fairly recently, but his comments were made back in roughly the same time period as that first piece. So, you know, and I think I probably mentioned, did I mention this last week? The iPod, right? The iPod, and that's kind of what, right? Biggest selling product Apple has ever had, the iPod. And at one of the heights of the sales for that specific product, the decision was made to introduce the iPhone. And this was, you know, what Jobs was really, this is about six paragraphs down. What Jobs was really doing is replacing the iPod altogether with the iPhone. Apple turned the music player from a product into a feature on the phone, right? Now they also had the software to back it up and the software integration to make it all happen, so that was good. If you have an iPhone, you really had no use for an iPod. In almost every way imaginable, the iPhone is better at all the things that iPod actually does well. I think it's fair to say that the iPhone effectively destroyed any future the iPod might have had. Right? Still, from a business standpoint, the iPhone seems like a terribly risky idea, again, at the time. It was the death sentence for the company's most popular product. The year the iPhone was introduced, the iPad sold 500 million units. Within a few years, that number was cut in half. So, yeah, but it is this idea of cannibalization and managing sales, you know, for the future. Now, at the same time, the iPhone or the iPad was faced with a lot of competition. There were a lot of other small handheld portable devices that held music files, right? I mean, they were ubiquitous. There were lots and lots of those. So and I think probably people bought iPods for access to the Apple Music or the music libraries, Apple Store, and things like that. You get kind of locked in, right? With Apple, you get kind of locked in, right? Anybody an Apple fan, you get locked in, Apple. It's like, right? Which is a great business model, by the way, locking customers in. So maybe there was just kind of some visionary stuff. Well, you know, maybe the iPod is only one piece of the puzzle. And as it turns out, as they say in the article, the iPod is only one the music capabilities and the features of the iPod are only one little piece of what the iPhone will do. And so automatically it gets cannibalized. Most companies take the opposite position. This is on the back page. Trying to milk their flagship products long past their prime. Once they become a cash cow, most companies are terrified of doing anything that might upset a good thing. The problem is, if you aren't willing to look past your best product, someone else certainly will. If you don't cannibalize yourself, somebody else will, quote unquote, right? So I think that's a great message to hear. I think that's just, you know, it's a thought leader type of a message on getting too comfortable with cash flows. And especially when you have a fickle market or, you know, you have competitors. Heaven forbid you have competitors who might upset things, right? And I think it's just a great way to think about this whole portfolio management stuff that we had last week. Any questions? Any comments? Cool. All right, so you guys had some great responses thinking about the whole profit. What should companies be doing? Should they be making money? We have one Jets fan who says sort of. How are the Jets going to be this year? I don't mean to pick on you.
Yeah, I hope they'll be all right. I don't know.
They're going to be good. Yeah, they're going to be all right. I think so.
After last year having the season end on the fourth play, it's like I'll take anything.
I agree. I'm with you on that. All right. So companies should make profit, right? I mean, that's why we invest in them. Would the owners want a return on their investment? I don't know if any, we're all people invest in the stock market and in other private interests. You invest in yourself. After you spend a lot of time, effort, and money getting an MBA, you don't want to work for free, do you? Anybody? I'll work for free. You won't get paid. You want your pay to reflect the effort and time and energy you put into it, right? So, which is more important, creating financial profit or financial value, or social profit for value?
Financial profit?
I like making money. Show me the money.
Yeah, but they can go hand in hand.
I don't know. You think it can?
Well, if you screw up the social, you've screwed up the profit.
Not always
If you
true.
focus totally on profit, then that's definitely where your social is going to be
It's interesting.
in today's
So,
society.
you feel like they're, in some cases, intertwined.
Yeah, they're intermingled. I mean, you can't just go out there and.
Are there some companies that don't deal with the public at all and they can do whatever they want? I don't know. Taylor, can you think of any?
I don't know, like Berkshire Hathaway does anything socially. I just know that they're worth $1 trillion now, and I haven't heard a single thing about them doing anything socially other than selling real estate.
That's a great example. Financial holding institutions.
They're one of the 7 largest companies in the entire world.
And they just buy and sell. That's all they
Yeah, I
do,
don't know
right?
if they do anything social. I haven't heard anything.
But they're buying and selling other companies
Yeah.
that are doing other things.
Okay. That's fair enough. Yeah.
I
I
think
love
it's,
it.
yeah, I don't know.
Ellen. I will work on that. Ellen.
I think it's fine when you focus on making money unless you don't screw up. Like for example, the Barilla, they just make pasta and then they screwed up one time, so they really had to, make all of that effort for the social. And I think especially nowadays with like social media and everything digital, if you do something wrong, the whole world knows. And then
Aren't customers overreactive? Don't they just go off the handle at anything?
yeah, I mean you have so many options nowadays.
Oh,
I think you can buy anything you want and receive it so quick.
okay. So, the power to the people in our purse, right? We have the budget, we have the money. So companies should definitely just have their social agenda and follow it. Right? Jake?
I was kind of mixed because I didn't it was hard for me to do this assignment because I was really going back and forth. I went ahead and go on one side because I hate contradicting myself because it started confusing me when I was writing.
Yeah.
But overall, hopefully I could say it better than what I was trying to say on the paper. But the importance is I think you got to look at culture today. I believe I kind of agree more with Jimmy because today I would say I'm pretty sure most people could think that consumers are probably not dissing you or anybody older, but I feel like we have a lot more available resources to look at companies' values and their morals. So when people are a little more exposed, you have TikTok and people employees will say something, and so I feel like it's really important for companies to stand for something.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't believe that every company has to have a social value because this is a capitalist society. You got to accept it. We're trying to make money, and you got to think about the employees too, because then they won't get paid. But it's just it's very important to understand that the society is different and that people do tend to put more value into things of what they believe in, because we talked about the self-congruency theory in the articles you gave us in the brand congruence, where people do identify with their, like, they identify their image with the things they buy. So you don't want to buy something that's like, you know, supporting, you know, something discriminatory,
Right.
and then you start like, well, am I doing that? You kind of have a like cognitive dissonance, because now you're trying to figure out, like, okay, I just bought a company that just, like, you know, don't like what I believe in, and now, like, am I contradicting myself? It's kind of like an identity crisis, because also in one of the articles, I don't remember, but I just feel like companies need to realize that there are actors. Like, people do tend to look to them. There's things they do matter, and they do have an image within society. I just think they just need to be a little more conscious of that, you know, power within and their influence within society, and recognize that, you know, sometimes if you don't do certain things, that's kind of more discriminatory, like Barilla, for example, you know, you are going to face conflict with sales and everything, you know, and I also feel like it have to be sincere, but I also don't think everybody need to go in. Like, McDonald's don't need to tell what political party they support. I mean, they're just selling chicken nuggets, right? You don't have to, like, just do it. Everything have to have a value to it, you know?
Right.
But I think they just need to understand that there is now there's more social value involved within purchasing.
I like that. What else?
You said, like, the priority kind of depends on, like, the size and the success of the firm. So, like, a big, like, firm like Nike, if they support, like, a controversial issue and they get some blowback, like, they can absorb the blow. But
Good.
a small firm, if they were to do something like that and they were to get, like, a financial blow, like, it could put them in a hole, put them out of business.
Yeah.
So, like, a smaller firm, I would say, like, your priorities can shift. Like, it doesn't always have to be one thing or the other. Like, as you get bigger and more successful, you can start to look more into the social value once the financial part's taken care of.
Kind of to expand on that, because I took a specific example. The CEOs and, like, the leadership of Chick-fil-A, they found out that they were supporting anti-gay, LGBT organizations, and they got massive blowback from that. They took the blows and they kept doing it. And they said, yeah, they did that. Okay, we're moving on. And Chick-fil-A didn't see any hampering in growth. They're still the third largest fast food chain in the States. And similar to what you were saying, they could just take the blow. Going back to the article, Patagonia put the tags on their jacket saying, don't buy this. Like, it has this ecological ramifications, but you're the ones that put it in the stores. So if you really cared about the ecological ramifications, you wouldn't have put it in the stores at all. People are still going to buy it regardless. So it's the question of whether or not, do you actually care about these ecological issues, or are you just doing these, like, token, like, gestures to try to say, oh yeah, we're trying our best here.
Okay. Yeah. A difficult question. It is, and we can't answer it here, and it's kind of beyond probably, but, you know, with market power, market strength, size, market share, comes a little bit of responsibility as kind of a leader in the economy, but also in social space, like a Nike. Nike is kind of like this leader, and it's got a lot of power in the marketplace. And I think one of the challenges that we face, especially this time now, and we have for some time, is exactly what should their role be? Should they, as a for-profit business, be a champion of a social agenda? Or, despite their strength and their power and their ability to move markets, should they be apolitical? Should they be, something else? There is actually some research, and it deals with this range of, I can't remember the exact word they use, I can't even remember the authors, but basically you've got, like you mentioned McDonald's. McDonald's is very involved with the Ronald McDonald House and with their charitable efforts to help people who have needs when their children are sick and things like that, right? That's a social platform they've created to support a social cause that is highly apolitical. It doesn't matter who you are, you're going to support that, right? Or you choose on the other end of the spectrum, whether you mean to or not. Chick-fil-A kind of fell into that. It wasn't on initially. It wasn't like an on purpose thing with the Cathy family. It's just who they are and what they do, and I don't think the people involved realized at the moment they were stepping on a landmine. But they did, and they should have, you know. But you don't have to adopt a highly sensitive social political issue to create social value. That's one of the challenges. So one of the kind of takeaways later on after, you know, years you think about this, you know, why would a company with so much power and so much command make the choice to choose a highly sensitive political, socio-political issue? Because you know by doing that, in fact, there's research that deals with this. You know that by doing that, you're going to alienate a certain percentage of the market. You're going to turn away people purposefully who don't agree with that thing, whatever you're dealing with. And so the question is, should companies be social actors? Should they be part of the conversation to move social issues or to dispel social concepts? Is that a proper role for a for-profit business? That's kind of the hard part of the question here. In society today, we have this concept of big business. If I said, well, big business is responsible for that, our reaction is, oh, well, they are evil. I'm not surprised, right? Of course it's big business. And the implications here is, well, they're just out for money. They just want to pad their pockets. They're just here for profit margin. They don't really care about the rest. And big business has the power to do what they want. They have the power not to pay taxes. They have the power to pollute the water. They have power to, you know, run over people or do whatever they are being told we're being told they do, right? And so it's kind of like the self-fulfilling prophecy where, well, if it's big business that's the problem, then is it big business that's going to be the solution? I mean, we're blaming them for everything. What happens when they step to the plate and they take a strong social political stance on something that we don't like or that we don't approve of, or right? I mean, it's kind of a challenging question. There's not an answer. I mean, I just want you to think about that role. And we talk a lot, and I love the you know, we have all this idea going with at the ground level, consumers have a sense of image, a sense of self, a sense of their self-concept. So theoretically, we have this idea that consumers want to manage their self and their self-image, and they also want to move their self-image to like a future self and a perceived self or something like that. Ever think about this? Like maybe in your younger years, maybe you finished high school, you went off to college, and you thought of it as a new opportunity to define yourself, to be a different person or wear different clothes or rebel, whatever, you know. I mean, we all go through these phases. Everybody does, where we see our current self and we see our future self and we work towards that if that's what we want to do. And brands have something we call a brand image, like we have a self-image. Brands have personalities. Some brands are thought of as more rugged and more caring and more sensitive and more tough. And they also have different expectations in the marketplace. And so yeah, this whole self-image congruency or brand image congruency is kind of part of this. And so, you know, get down to it, if you feel like you just bought this product and you just learned that this company, you know, really doesn't do things like you would do, it creates, you use this term dissonance, this cognitive dissonance between yourself and that brand, and you start feeling like, regret, like you made a bad decision, or like, well, hey, I just paid them money, and some of the money I just paid them is going to this thing, right? And so at a very real level, consumers do that. Now, is it a function that we have more information? Absolutely, it is. We have a lot more information available to us. Thank goodness we have influencers, and if we didn't have TikTok, I wouldn't know what to think. It's also a function of, in a lot of ways, we have this term we use, commoditization, where, you know, we have a dozen different places we could buy coffee. We literally do. And we don't have to buy from one or the other. We can pick and choose. You're 100% right. We have a lot of choice, right? And not everything, but a lot of times we have a lot of choice. We can choose things like that. So that drives it to a big thing. So one of the things I want to kind of mention here, just a little bit. We'll get rid of some of this. It's old. Get rid of all of this. How about that? Early on, first class probably, we talked about exchange theory, and we talked about how consumers perceive value as a relationship between the benefits they receive and the costs that they have to incur to receive those benefits. And this has been used a lot of times and in a lot of ways. And if we start to think about what the benefits are, I'm gonna expand this a little bit to suggest or remind of the value proposition concept. The value proposition, if you remember, again, from probably principles of marketing, is everything that the customer receives as a result of that product or that service. Everything. So you don't just buy a physical thing. You're buying what that physical thing will do. You're buying the brand. You're buying its image. You're buying the fact that it was available to store and easy to get. You're buying all the different elements. You're buying the advertising and the communication and all the things that you've ever had come in contact with that product. You're buying. It's the value proposition. So in a lot of ways, we think of this as like the function of the product, what it actually does. Buying that. This is not an exhaustive list. You're buying the fact that it meets your needs and it satisfies your wants. Right? I mean, those are things that you're buying when you buy the product. So again, we're talking benefits here. Things like ownership rights, you don't think of this really oftentimes. Ownership rights, oftentimes when you buy a product, it's yours, you own it, you can resell it. So things like that. So it's an asset. So sometimes when you buy a product, we don't always think of it like that. We also, I'm going to do this, do the results. We also buy the results. So it not only meets your needs, satisfies your wants, but we also receive the results of the products in use. You go get a haircut, the result is you have less hair and it's styled nicely. It looks good, right? It's the result, it's the effect. If you buy a car, you get transport and some things like that. Here's the thing about today. Another thing that we get from this, we also receive the association of having the product or with the product or the connection of the product. And this is very much an image brand thing. Type of a thing. So, you buy the product and you are part of that product's community. We have a term called brand community. You're one of their customers. You're part of a family. You're part of their world. You're buying yourself into that space. I wear Nikes when occasionally I'll go for a run. I usually wear Nikes or Brooks. But I feel part of the Nike community when I have those on. Maybe that's weird, right? Certainly if you own an Apple product, you may feel part of the Apple community. You're part of something. You are part of something. You're associated. You have an association with the brand or the product when you buy it. And here's the thing. This is becoming more important today than it ever has been before. In our choice sets, when we choose to buy products, this benefit, even among all these other things are important, obviously. These things all have to happen. But in today's environment as a consumer, for a whole host of reasons, we value this in an increasing sense than we ever have before. And that's driving a lot of this. Right? That's driving how this happens. Now, circling back around, okay, great. That's fantastic. But what does that mean for the firm? And it's actually strategic in every way, shape, or form. I 100% get that consumers feel warm and fuzzy when a company sends money to save koala bears or does whatever, right? I mean, I get that there's an emotional attachment and there's an emotional sense for that. But companies don't do that for their customers to feel warm and fuzzy. I am not, as a business person, as a marketing manager, I'm not going to engage in a cause-related strategy for the sole purpose of making my customers feel good. That's not what I'm all about. There's a bottom line, there's a profit margin, there are investors. My paycheck at the end of the day is not based on how good you feel about yourself and the fact that you're using my product. And I think consumers need to know that. Consumers need to understand part of that. If they feel fuzzy and warm because of it, great. That's a super benefit. But what the research has shown is that when the company includes this as part of their, focus of benefits, if we include this as something we offer you, the customer, this association, remember that brand image, congruence thing, if this is all part of it, we can charge a price premium. We can charge you more. I mean, the evidence suggests it. Last week we went through those statistics, how people would be more willing to buy a product that costs more if they know that it's helping somebody out, right? If they know the brand is doing something good. We can increase our sales. So we can push our sales. And we can introduce our product to new markets or new consumers who may not otherwise buy our products. We can increase market share. This pen's not really very good either. Sorry about that. I'm kind of going through them tonight. I don't know if you can read this or not. It's bad enough my handwriting is indecipherable, but the pen doesn't work particularly well either. This market share thing, that leads to stronger competitive positioning too. By the way, when we have periods of bad PR, in other words, when we screw things up, it has less effect on the market. People are willing to forgive us more readily or more quickly when we engage in this type of a connection with customers. So in other words, hey, we screwed up, your order was wrong, we gave you poor customer service, you're not as likely to reject my brand as a result of these other things that I do. Because this is, so in other words, if something wrong goes here, if we screw up, then we can recover. Service recovery is a lot faster and a lot more palatable. Customers are more loyal to you. Customers produce stronger word of mouth, better, more positive and stronger word of mouth. Right? So again, Jimmy, I don't think you're wrong. I think it's a combination of things. I think it's kind of this meshing of, keeping this eye on why we're doing this from a business model perspective. Why are we engaging in cause-related marketing? Or why are we consciously thinking about a social value, the social value we produce? It is good. It isn't bad, I mean, I guess it's bad if you don't agree with the social position I take. Right? I mean, in fairness, there are a lot of social positions out there that people love and lots they hate. So, don't choose a highly sensitive, volatile issue. That's probably the takeaway at the end of the day, right? Let's choose a social, political cause that everybody can get behind and agree with. And at the end of the day, what's my justification for doing this stuff? Well, all of these good things that are the results of it. There's not a right or wrong answer to a lot of these reflections, but they are thought pieces, I hope, that would challenge you. I don't want to confuse anybody, but it is a kind of like go back and forth. What should the role of a company be? And what should they actively be doing today? Okay. All right, we're doing okay? We're doing good? I hope this class has been entertaining for you, if nothing else. We're getting some progress made. Any questions about where we are and what we're doing? Let's jump into a little bit of material. We'll go through some of this. We'll probably take a break at some point. We'll see how we're doing. We'll go from there. Sound good? All right. Good. Yeah, Barilla. I sometimes include a Chick-fil-A article in that group. I didn't. Patagonia is always good. Patagonia is a real focused company. I really, are they hypocritical? Maybe, but I don't know. I think they're probably doing the best they can to walk the walk based on what they think, what their kind of purpose is and stuff like that. And I think I mentioned it before, that they're a very successful company. They make money. There's no doubt about that. So it's not like a matter of they don't even care, but they're very successful. So I'm not going to knock them at all for doing what they do in that sense. But we need to turn our attention to some material from this week. A couple things we're going to look at. And just kind of go see where we go, see where it takes us. We will try to go for a while and then maybe look at the clock and go from there. But chapter 3, this week's material, focuses on the evolving environment that you find yourself in business and so forth. And so I'm going to talk around a few different topics that I think are good. Give you maybe a couple tools that I think from a manager standpoint are incredibly useful. Just really useful tools to do this type of stuff. Yeah, and go from there. So start this, seeing the trees and not the forest. And we'll spend a little time just to talk about some challenges that happen as a result of turbulent markets. So as you know, or as you can imagine, with information technology in particular, it creates a rapidly fast-paced moving environment. If you're launching products, your competitors know right away. If you have lots of different products out there, competitors do too, customers know about them right away. There's just a lot of change that happens very quickly. So markets are increasingly evolving and just interrelated in the sense that there's a lot of overlap between customers and such. We talk about these variations. Jaden, you mentioned, and you didn't say anything to offend you about an older person versus a younger person and how we receive information, how we process information. Older people have a whole lot more experience in processing information. And so there are pros and cons to both, but they interrelate too. I made the joke about TikTok, and I truly don't do much of anything on social media, but I have social media accounts. I just don't do a lot on them, right? But as digitally savvy as anybody, I've built websites, I've done all kinds of stuff in the digital world. So, it's not that there are clear divides as much that, demographic groups behave in certain ways. I think they're interrelated in a lot of ways. So when we think of markets, it's good to think of them from a broader perspective. And the challenge I know some of your groups are having are deciding and defining product categories. I think maybe some of the material tonight may help with that a little bit. One of our challenges is being too narrowly focused or too broadly focused. We want to have something in between. But if we stay too narrowly focused, in other words, if Apple, for instance, viewed themselves as an audio device technology type company, we would never have had the iPhone. And the iPhone would never have replaced the iPod. They would have just kept making iPod versions of iPods if they really just thought they were that type of company. It's like Encyclopedia Britannica, came up with them earlier in the term, right? If they only thought of themselves as a book company, they would be out of business today. Nobody buys books anymore, hard copy books, right? If they didn't evolve into something else, then they would have been too focused in a too narrow sense, and that would have been a bad thing. So one of our challenges then, one of the things that we want to do is to try to identify and see where the market's going to go, see where the industry is going to go, and so forth. So finding promising opportunities, being aggressive in that sense is something that companies need to do. Be visionary in that sense. Understanding and being able to capture shifts and changes in our market and our consumers, being agile enough to make those shifts and changes is certainly something that we need to think about doing. And then finally, understanding not only what our competitors' positions are, but anticipating what our competitors are about to do and moves that we think they will make and the reactions that they will ultimately have. So again, this chapter kind of focuses a lot on change, drivers of change, kind of adapting to change. Environmental turbulence is mentioned a lot. One of the things that this chapter spends a lot of time walking through something called an environmental scan or a situational analysis, where we look at the macro level effects that we all deal with. So there's a lot of time spent on that in the chapter. But drivers of market changes. What are some of them? Technology disruptions for sure, no doubt. When a new technology in a process or in some type of innovation comes along, it's going to change the way we do things. It changes the way customers do things, consumers do things, and also how businesses practice. So it could be an innovation change in a production line or a type of an ingredient that's used at a company level type of a thing. That's going to cause change. It's going to cause things to happen. Mention this idea of commoditization. If you're not familiar with what commoditization is, think of the idea of like a new product comes out and it's new and not a lot of versions of it exist, and then over time it becomes older, the technology ages a little bit, lots of competitors offer their version of the same product, and before you know it, it's like that product's just a common thing. It's a common thing. It's become a commodity. It's something that technically a commodity is a product with very, very, very little differentiation between products. And so when you look at product A, product B, there's not really a lot of distinction between the two, or brand A and brand B, there's not a lot of distinction between them, then that's when the product starts to become a commodity. And we as consumers look at those a little bit differently, and how we manage those products is a lot different. But it causes you to lose your competitive advantage if it's based on the benefits of that product. Okay, so again, that's kind of a thing that causes us to change, commoditization. Creating new markets and new market spaces. So when a new product or an innovation comes out, new product categories emerge sometimes. This obviously also happens if we bring a product to a new group of consumers who've never seen the product before. That's the creation or the development of a new market. The market's there, but it has to be developed, has to be created. I mentioned the Segway before and how it had a real slow takeoff. Again, one of the ideas, the cause or the issue there was that the market wasn't made. The market didn't really exist. There really wasn't a market that demanded that type of product, even though the product was there and it was a great innovative thing. It just didn't have the market behind it. But imagine though there are new markets being created, and how those new markets will jump to the new product, and think of that new market that the cell phone not only was the market that destroyed portable handheld listening devices, it has largely destroyed the traditional camera, right? I mean, think of a product that's destroyed multiple product categories, and today's phone has done that. Okay, and then finally, this idea of fast-changing markets, rapidly expanding, changing markets. Happens as well. All right, so the bottom line here is there got to be a bunch of drivers that cause us to need to be nimble and dynamic. And one of the kind of concepts here, which there's a paper that's available to you, and we'll probably talk about it more next week, or circle back around it. It's written in 1960. It's a Harvard Business Review article. It's called "Marketing Myopia" by Ted Levitt. It is a seminal article that deals with focus, and it deals with this idea that if we're too narrowly focused in our view of who we are, we will go out of business. We will lose the sight of the market. The market will change, our competitors will change, and it will drive us out of business. There are a number of examples, even from 1960, from where that happens. But basically the idea here is that we have a traditional way of doing business. If we're that Encyclopedia Britannica, we knock on the doors, we go door to door, we sell families a set of books, that has information in them. The information doesn't change because it's printed form, right? It can't be updated. It is what it is. And you buy all 26, volumes, one for each alphabet, and it's there. And that's how you do it. So you use conventional value propositions. You sell to an existing customer base. However, let's say there's a technological shift or an innovation. There's some new products out there, or maybe there are new ways to deliver value. So companies form new business models. So what happens is new types of competition emerge, which then create new customers. And a new customer base or a new market might emerge. One, however, which we are unable to tap into because we're too focused on doing what we do. We haven't thought broadly enough, right? So what if I'm Coca-Cola, I don't know how many years ago, 40 years ago, and I view myself as a soft drink beverage company, and I don't really see bottled water as really a substitute for, and who would buy bottled water? They're gonna buy a Coke. You gotta buy a Coke, you gotta buy a Coke. You're not gonna buy bottled water. And heaven forbid you're not gonna buy a sports drink, right? You're gonna buy a Coke. No. So if we only say, no, the customers are only gonna buy a soft drink, so I am a soft drink producer. And if you don't see that there are all these other different types of business models, different types of products out there, wait, if somebody might choose a Gatorade over a Coke, then we should start getting into that space. Because we're really not a soda company, are we? We're a beverage company. Now, I've broadened my horizon a little bit. I've seen a bigger picture from what I thought I was to what I really am. So now all of a sudden, if I'm a beverage company, I'm not a soda company, I'm a beverage company. If I'm a beverage company, look at all the new products that I can start to develop. Look at all the new things I can sell. Look at all the new markets I can go into. Because I'm a beverage company. I'm not a soda company, I'm a beverage company. I can sell to athletes who are sweating on the field or doing whatever, right? I can sell to people who are on vacation and they want a bottle of water. Because I'm a beverage company. I'm not a soda company. So see how so myopic thinking, so myopia is a term for eyes, and it suggests that you have blinders on. When you have a myopic situation, you can't see except for what's in front of you. And so marketing myopia is this narrow vision that we fall into because we define ourselves as a company as having this one focus. And you lose sight from the sides of all this other stuff going on. That's a real, so that's kind of, it is, again, the article is an absolute seminal article that is one that is critically important to kind of take away when we're starting to think about product categories and markets and things of that nature. Now, the text will come back to this again later on, another chapter. We look at customers and kind of some things like that. But the chapter talks about the big blue areas, thinking about where change happens that's going to cause you to refocus your efforts, maybe change the direction that your company's going in and what you offer. So again, the macroeconomic or the macro environment kind of trends that you've probably seen something like this before. If you've done a business plan, or if you've done any type of management class or marketing plan, it usually starts with some type of situation analysis or some type of an environmental kind of evaluation of the trends that are happening in the economy, happening in technology, happening in the government or politics, happening in regulation, happening in a cultural space, people, culture, society. And sometimes also in the natural environment as well. And so this is where the text really talks to us a bit. If we're going to look for where change happens, then gonna look a little closer inside, and we can look at the customer. Again, these W's, they come back in another chapter. We'll see a little later on. But a clear just vision or just understanding, a monitoring of where we are will help us do this, kind of understand things. So with that, I want to introduce this idea of something called a product market. And this is an analysis that we do to understand where we are in business, who our competitors are, and gives us some strategies that you're going to see. So there are going to be a couple models that we'll look at. But a product market is a depiction of or an explanation of the structure that matches people and products or solutions to their problems together. Okay, so product market analysis, product market space is something that we might use. Okay, we've talked about exchanges and marketplaces, but this product, and if you think about what we did before, where we had firms on one side, customers on the other, they came together in a marketplace. Products are on one side, markets are on one side, and they come together in the same place to make an exchange. So product markets, kind of as a term, when we think about it, are spaces or structures in an effect of how customers can come together, markets can come together to satisfy their needs based on the products that are available in the marketplace. Again, two terms that we use that I'll just affirm again. When we talk about customers or markets, we talk about a market is a group of customers that share the same need or want. Okay, and again, when we do our projects, you're going to want to look at who the market is for the product category that you've chosen. And there'll be several. There'll be market segments. There'll be groups of consumers, typically. Simultaneously, don't forget that when we use the term industry, it's a group of firms that are dedicated to providing a solution that similar sets of products that satisfy a similar solution. Okay, and so this whole process then is going to be all about defining the structure of how products and markets come together. As an illustration, again, kind of not only that myopic condition, that concept of myopia, but also the evolution of a product market space. Here's just over time, kind of a bar chart of products in the non-alcoholic beverage space. 1940s, you're pretty excited if you're Kool-Aid, because you're the cool kids, and everybody likes something new, especially with the little children and all of that. I mean, look, who's your competition? Milk, coffee, tea, and soft drinks, right? So we're breaking into that space in the 1940s. 1960s, things grow. The markets expand, we sell more product, but once we get towards the 1980s, we have new entrants into the space, right, into this product category, new beverage types, sports drinks, fruit drinks, mineral water, Evian or Perrier, right, from the 80s, absolutely, and then fast forward to the 2000s, and we could even do further. I guess this is pretty outdated now, but we have energy drinks and really bottled water in addition. But, how important from here to here, how important in the big scheme of things is Kool-Aid anymore? It drops off the map, right? It's just insignificant, right? It goes away. And so one of the illustrations that this shows is that over time, product markets change. There are new products that are added to the category. Some go away. Some of the relative importance changes as well. Look at how, I don't know if this will work. I don't know what that does. I think I'm supposed to, No worries. Coffee and tea proportionately grows much larger. Then milk stays fairly consistent. It doesn't grow much. Bottled water, mineral water, bottled water proportionally grows a lot in terms of its relative size and so forth. Fruit drinks don't grow particularly large. We add energy drinks. So in other words, the product market space, what consumers are looking for, and the products that match those needs evolve and change over periods of time. So there's a process then, and we'll walk through this a little bit. I'm going to show you some illustrations. So to evaluate the product market space, okay, it's going to kind of look like this. There's going to be about 4 steps, excuse me. There is a 5th one, but we don't show it here. One is determine the boundaries and structure of the product market. So we'll talk about that for a little bit. Number 2 will be analyze the product market. I'm going to give you a tool to do that with today. It's the second big thing that we'll do, okay, in this talk. 3rd and 4th deal with analyzing and evaluating customers and analyzing and evaluating competition. Those last 2 we actually do in weeks like 5 and 6 of this term. So we won't spend a lot of time talking about those today. The notes actually include a little bit of information on those, so if you want to look through those, you can. I don't feel like we're going to spend class time today because we're really going to hit those later on. And again, this product market model is not something that's highlighted real heavily in the text. It's something, though, that I think that would be helpful for anybody if they're trying to manage a company and kind of think about strategic decisions. Okay, so think about these this kind of process steps. We're going to spend a little bit of time on determining boundaries, structure, product markets, and then we're going to spend a little bit of time analyzing product market, and then we'll go on from there. Okay? Sound good? All right, perfect. So this idea of market boundaries. Now, I think it's probably, I don't know what the best way to do this is. I usually kind of add a little description. We're going to draw a chart with some arrows. And at the very top, think of a product category in a very, very generic sense. So maybe automobiles. That's a very generic product category, right? There are lots of different types of automobiles. But automobiles might be the most generic sense of the word or sense of a product category. Below automobiles, you have different types. And now this is kind of a creative process. You have small cars, you have medium cars. You could throw in that automobile space probably trucks. That would be okay to do. Maybe cargo vans, but I don't know. You could do electric vehicles. You could do gasoline-powered vehicles. So in other words, after you say automobiles, start thinking about categories of automobiles. That would be next, right? You might actually have a couple different layers of that. So don't think you have to have just kind of one layer, but generic, then a category type, drop down again, and you start getting into even more specific product types and eventually brands. So we could say automobiles, we could say small cars, we could say small cars that are hybrid, and then under that we could do all the different brands that offer small hybrid cars. Those individual brands are direct competitors, and we need to worry about those. We need to know what those products are if we're selling one of those. Right? And that's kind of how the structure works. So let's look at a little picture here, and it actually works better if we look at this picture. We're going to carry on. We've got this beverage theme going. So beverages, very generic, right? Very generic category. Like if we're going to do a class project, we don't want to do beverages. It's like too generic. It's too broad. It's very, right? So let's say, okay, well, look, we just kind of saw an illustration there. We saw that chart go up. We've got different types of beverages. Let's classify these as either alcoholic beverages or non-alcoholic beverages. Okay, maybe there are other types, I don't know, but we're just going to say this for now. Now, again, we're talking about the structure of the product market. If you look at each one of these little circles, there's going to be a group of consumers that would most likely buy this product, or that would like it. Now, sometimes as a consumer you buy all of them, right? But only under certain circumstances. When you're out after a run, I don't grab a bottle of milk. That would be awful. I just can't even imagine that. I've got a real bad habit. Before I run, I always drink coffee. Almost always. Bad habit, probably. And then something else. So I'm not saying that the consumer doesn't ever not buy this stuff. It just depends, right? Depends on the market and kind of situation, all like that. All right, and maybe this is not exclusive. Maybe there are other certain types of non-alcoholic beverages. I'm sure there are that are not listed here. But this is like one kind of layer of a product category. Okay, take it down another level. Under soft drinks, they're all different types of soft drinks, but we can probably group them into some similarities or some categories that make sense. So if I want a fruity type of a soft drink, a 7-Up, a Sprite, Fresca, something like that, they all kind of are similar. I could see one person choosing between those if they were wanting a fruity soft drink. If somebody wants a cola, that's kind of a distinctive thing. I don't really know where Dr. Pepper fits. It's in its own category. It's not really anything like it. But colas are kind of the same in a way. Pepsi, Coke, I don't know what other ones there are, but I'm sure there are plenty of others. Right? So then those brands that are designated as colas form direct competitors. They compete against each other directly. Now, I'm not saying that a root beer isn't a indirect or substitute type of a product. It certainly is. And there are certainly times when I want a sports drink instead of a soda altogether or a soft drink altogether. But this is like the way we think about product markets. Does that make sense? And so you should be able to take, it's an exercise. It's like a practice. If you work in an industry or if you have a product you particularly like, or if you wanted just to do it for fun, you could probably create a product market structure for just about anything, right? You should be able to. This is something we should be able to do. But from a managerial perspective, remember I said this idea of like being too focused? If I'm Coca-Cola and I only think of myself as a soft drink company or as a cola company, if I think of that's all I am, then look at all the other business that I am losing all above me, right? If I don't think of myself as a beverage company, then I don't have any opportunity to participate in any of these other product categories because I'm too focused on this one thing. Right? So that's kind of, this is one of the takeaways of the product market concept, that we're able to draw this out and we're able to think about the structure. Now, do some products go away over time? Yeah, absolutely. Kool-Aid was here at one point, and it's just not a big player. It's not a bottled thing. We don't have, well, I do have coffee and tea there, but so you can go buy a coffee or tea like cold from the store. Do things, but some of these things that like cold iced coffee didn't exist in the 80s in the stores. It wasn't the thing. So that came in if you think about that product category. So over time, these do change. They're not static. They don't always stay the same. Gives us opportunities to think if there's something that's emerging that I might be able to go into. I might see, because this is a turbulent, like there's a lot of change that's going on. We talked about that. I might see new opportunities I can go into, or I could see, like Britannica did, that their product category is going away. So they needed to shift to another product category or another area that they could do. And so, again, it is a prescriptive activity that as a company manager, brand manager, product manager, are really helpful to do if you think about what a product market is, kind of the definition of one, and some things like that. Cool? Good conceptually, okay? All right, so analyzing a product market. And this is kind of where kind of a little bit where the rubber meets the road. This is just a real useful tool. There's actually a way to kind of think about product markets in a chart form or a grid form. And so we'll talk a little bit about that. And again, this is a takeaway. If you're managing products, you can implement this right away, and it might help you think about growth and some things like that. So we're going to talk about something called a product market grid. Sometimes it's called a chart, right? But it's based on the products that you offer and the markets that you serve. So when you look at this chart, you'll see products across the top in one axis and markets down the side in the other axis. Managerial, this tool can be used to help you identify growth opportunities. This is a growth opportunity application. Okay? It helps you also see the big picture. See what your competitors are possibly doing, and again, see where things are. I'm going to ask you, so just out of curiosity, I know the name may not be too familiar with you, but anybody remember the growth strategies you might have learned if we managed new products and new markets, or old products, old markets? Things like the market penetration strategy, or the product development strategy, or the market development strategy, or the diversification strategy. There are 4 of them. Anybody remember any of those ideas? If I develop a new product and I take it to an existing market, it's a product development strategy. So if you're not familiar with that, it's okay. Don't sweat it. It is in that principles book if you're interested. That's called the ANSOF, ANSOFF, ANSOF Growth Matrix. It's one of these like standard things that everybody sees in principles of marketing class. This is an extension of that chart. So if that is at all familiar to you, this is going to come back to you maybe, I hope. We'll see. We'll see if it does. Okay, so the product market grid or chart, as I mentioned, we're going to list products across the top, markets down the side. Okay, so if you offer a product, we would name it at the top, and then if we position the product to a specific group of consumers, we would describe those consumers as a market down the side. So these might be market segments even that we look at there. Okay, now this is an old screenshot. This is an old picture. I honestly haven't been able to find a new one, but this is an example of a product market grid for Reebok, the company. There's a couple caveats here. One is it's old, it's dated, I get that. So please understand that the principles remain, even though the shoes may not last forever. Number 2 caveat is that you do not have to limit yourself to only your company if you're creating this tool for management. You can include your competitors' products as well and other markets. Okay, so it's actually really beneficial to add your competitors because then you can see what their strategy is going to be. You can predict their strategy, and you can also see areas of weakness that they have that you might not otherwise see. So adding your competitors' products and doing a bigger evaluation would actually give you a lot more information. But this is for Reebok. And just kind of taking it in a little at a time, we see they have different products that have been launched at different times across the top. And there's a variety of different shoes and products they offer. They vary a lot in terms of what they do and what they're for. And you see down the side that there are specific market segments for whom they ideally position these products towards. Now, not every product certainly would be positioned to every market. That doesn't really make sense. We want to position, running shoes to runners, right? And also, by the way, walkers may want to use those, and if our shoes are stylish enough, comfort/style conscious consumers may buy those too. So look at the side here. We've got different types of consumers. Some are athletes, some are just regular folks, and then we have different applications that they're using the products for. So that defines these market segments. That's kind of how they looked at those markets at that time. And then just glancing from left to right, you see these products and kind of how they have drop in there and how they are designed to satisfy customers. So again, this is a product market grid. We could look here and say, look, our golfers out there, our golf friends, we've only got one option for you. Maybe if the golfer market, maybe if that market segment was growing, or maybe if we found some opportunities where it looked more attractive, maybe we'd offer another shoe in that space. And maybe we could carve out some more sales, and better serve that market segment. That might be an area where we could grow. Let's add a shoe that is designed specifically for golfers, maybe. So this chart would shift to the right, we'd add a column, we'd add a new shoe, and we do that. Street fashion, we only have one shoe for them. Children, the kids' shoe, we don't really do a lot in that category either, right? Boy, our cross trainer gets a lot of use, doesn't it? A lot of people use the cross trainer. That's a good thing, right? So again, think about what products are offered and what markets. Again, the product market structure says we're matching markets with products. That's the definition of a product market. It's in the name. We're putting them together, bringing them together. So this chart illustrates how they're brought together. And it shows visually where we might be over, like the walkers. We don't need any more shoes that a walker would use. I mean, look at all these offerings that we have for them. We probably don't need more. This might just be accident. This S means like a secondary market. Like it's not our primary market, but walkers also buy them. So we consider, a portion of our sales go to walkers as well, but that's really not who we're focused on positioning it towards. They just happen to buy them as well. Okay, it's kind of a cool thing. I don't know, I think it is. You might not. I think it's kind of cool. I think it's fun to look at. But again, let me just emphasize that if I were to add other brands to this, like let's say I don't end with Reebok, but I add Fila and I add, I don't know, whoever else, Under Armour nowadays, I add whoever else is out there, and I start plotting their products, then I start to see where their weaknesses are. I start to predict where they will grow next, right? It's a really kind of an informative type of a tool that helps you do this. The other thing that ties this in is going back to our friend Ansoff and the growth matrix. Okay, so again, 4 different strategies that model predicts, okay? So if we were to take the ugly picture that I had before and just the boring one, if we expanded, before we had 3 products, 3 markets, if we expand by adding markets, like so, we had a product, maybe we find a new group of consumers who'll buy it. We had a shoe, we had a type of shoe, and maybe we find a new application for it, bring it to a new market. This is called a market development strategy. This is a growth strategy. This is one of the ways we grow revenue. We grow profits, we grow sales by finding new people to buy our products. Look, at the end of the quarter, your investors are going to want to know where growth is going to come from. They will want to know. And so Well, we're going to bring products to new markets. We're going to develop new markets. This is how we're going to do it. This is one of the growth strategy options that you can do. Okay, again, it's the same chart. It's just moving, right? It's just expanding or changing somehow. So it's the same product market chart. We're just doing something to it. Remember with Reebok, maybe we added a new shoe to get better coverage for our golfers by adding a new shoe or adding a new product. And again, this is a kind of a generic chart, but it's pushed to the right now. We're adding products 4 and 5. That's a product development growth strategy. Again, from Ansoff. That's the Ansoff growth matrix that comes from. That's where it's all derived. Again, investors want to know how we're going to make more money. Well, we'll build more products. We'll create new products. We'll sell them to people. That'll be good. Okay, strategy number 3. These are not in any real particular order, but I guess they are. But the diversification growth strategy. Diversification. All right, so when we diversify, in this sense, the way it's meant in this model is that we do 2 things at once. We grow new products, we develop new products, and bring them to new markets. It's a very risky growth strategy. There's a lot of risk involved with a diversification growth strategy. But the chart changes again. It gets expanded diagonally because we're adding 4 and 5 at this point in both markets and products. Okay, so this is the application of this tool, which again is kind of cool, I think. An extension of Ansoff. Okay, the 4th strategy, anybody remember what it is? You can speak up, it doesn't matter. No? Market penetration strategy. Market penetration strategy. And the chart doesn't change at all. It doesn't even move. It's like, all right, in a market penetration strategy, just for completion, even though the chart doesn't move, what it basically means in Ansoff's model is that we sell more product, we induce and encourage our existing customers to buy more of our products or spend more with us. Their share of wallet, we want them just to spend more money with. So that money that they have that they haven't spent with us, sometimes we refer to it as consumer surplus. You walk into the store, you buy a shirt, and they talk you into buying a belt or a necklace or something to go with it. They're upselling you a little bit. You're spending a little bit more with that company. Fantastic. There's nothing wrong with that, right? You're extracting as a business. You're getting more money out of your customers. That's what this penetration. It's a market penetration strategy. So again, it doesn't impact the picture that we just saw. It doesn't impact the grid that we were talking about, but rather it just completes the Ansoff model. Okay, so just to we'll take a little break here, but wrapping this kind of concept up, thinking about how change happens in a marketplace, how change happens in an industry, capturing that through some tools here, I think are super useful. But you have to first understand the structure of the market and just kind of understand how products work that way. And this tool is super useful to do that. You guys have any questions? Any thoughts? I'm throwing a lot at you, right, Matt? You can't fall asleep in the front row either. You wouldn't anyways, right? I'm joking. All right, let's take 5 to 10 minutes, maybe top of the hour. It's almost about 8 till 9. Wait, 8 till, what time is it? 8 till 8. Yeah,
7:51.
So we have a little bit of time left, right? Jimmy?
A little bit.
We do. Almost an hour. Got 55 minutes. All right, let's get back here maybe at the top of the hour. We'll see where we go from there.
they do rangefinders, they have a really big golf watch. So I don't know if there are any speakers in this book, it would make sense for them. Yeah, I agree.
Very good, very good.
Yeah.
Any plans for the week?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm gonna miss this game. Gonna cost.
What year is he?
He's senior.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
he's a nursing degree, in a nursing program too, so he like go into the hospital, go into the day, and come back. Yeah, so he does a lot.
Where did you guys grow up?
Columbia.
Okay, so
Yeah,
you're
but
from, well, I was wondering, I mean, geographically, you live
Exactly.
far from each other.
Exactly, yeah.
But
Yeah,
a
we didn't
little,
get far at all.
a little bit of sibling rivalry
Exactly, a
there.
little
You
rivalry.
couldn't go, you guys couldn't go to the same school, I guess.
Yeah, it's because he didn't want to.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
I was like, yeah, man, come on. He's like, no, I want to like be in the shadow. Okay,
A competitive thing.
Yeah,
I hear you.
competitive thing, yeah.
Well, good for him.
Oh yeah, I'm excited to see.
So is last year of eligibility or?
He got 2 more years with the program or something. You know, that's like a rigorous program. So you're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
If you should play football while you're doing,
Yeah.
nursing programs. Like,
Yeah.
kind of like,
Oh, it's
it
super
could be
hard.
last year. It could be last year, but school's trying to work with him and everything. So we'll see.
Well, good for him.
Yeah,
That's
it's
awesome.
exciting.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
What was your NFL team again?
Cowboys. But
Yeah.
I follow it. No, college is.
You love college. Yeah. Atmosphere.
Yeah, that's what it all is. It's just a lot of talk about the turbulent and dynamic. This whole and every year, you just never know what's going to face. If I was thinking about this the other day,
Yeah.
I would almost be willing to bet that between Florida and Florida State combined records, they don't have more than 10 wins between them. I would almost be willing. I'm actually.
Yeah,
I might write
out
that
there.
down and see at the end of the season if I.
Yeah, and see if your registered correct.
I mean, how and yeah, it's. No, it's and you know, that sort of thing.
Exactly.
They really haven't. So they talk about the turbulence in the industry. Can a team survive without using the transfer portal?
Yeah.
And I think at any in any of the bowl or
Yeah, FBS.
or
stuff.
yeah. I mean, it really doesn't matter whether you're coastal security.
Exactly. Game players.
Game players.
Exactly. So, I mean, unfortunately, I think see 11 go, try go, just go ahead and use it. At least, like, you don't have to go, like, get 30 players, like, how, like,
Yeah.
like 35 players.
I guess that's a little dry.
Yeah. It's a big extreme.
Well, I don't know. I don't know how many little kids got. It's used a lot.
Yeah, like I just checked like.
You know, I mean, it says it does say something about like the basketball model. where again, you're recruiting you're still gonna have student players, but you don't know how long, the top programs are one and done. Every year. I mean, every year, that matures.
I agree. So what I was thinking is we'll we'll come up with some ideas by end of day tomorrow. We'll throw them in among the three.
You'll always have natural talents.
Yeah, mine's definitely gonna be a Saturday afternoon thing.
What's your
Yeah.
Chiefs are playing tonight.
You kind of tell with the first year or two.
I'll start.
That's kind of true.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, usually it's the top and there's something. So
I think Chiefs
there.
You said
Oh,
I didn't see that. Yeah,
he doesn't try until January or something.
I saw that. That was crazy.
So,
That's insane. 17 years old.
Yeah,
Good thing they have that rule in the NFL with crazy contact 3 years.
yeah.
some ideas.
I went to his office
Tomorrow.
and got eyes lessons.
Got ideas.
You
Yeah,
got
we all got it.
like the classes and the
All right, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know. You saw TV break the Chiefs.
All right.
Yeah.
We've also been approached though for years.
Okay, that gives me.
I'll send you a text now. Just make sure.
That's what I feel like. Everyone's talking, I'm like, oh, you're so smart.
I think I was gonna say we have
It's more about your guys.
You get that?
I have really got some issues.
All right. Yeah, I'll add you in now.
Well, and that's what I expected.
Just feel free to, don't ever feel.
Yeah, that's when it's obnoxious, you know.
But that's it.
So I get to go home and do tonight.
Should I use it?
But yeah, so what I'm thinking is
I just
by
can't.
what did I say?
Yeah.
Saturday or Sunday? I want to be able to email him, get an idea going. Yeah, okay. Yes, between tomorrow and Saturday, just everybody throw their ideas in teams. Whichever one we like best. From there, I'll send them the email. We'll figure it out.
So especially
If it's too broad, we can't reconcile them, then maybe we'll pick a different idea. But that way, by Thursday, we're not scrambling.
I think so, you just can't read
Everything in teams.
Everything between teams in the group chat, but in terms of, because I don't want to throw all of the ideas in here, I'd rather send them to teams that we're all already on computers anyway.
Oh, yeah, that's good. That's good. Stop, Trevor. That's a good video of football.
It's not like I went all year.
With my team, that's literally one.
In New York?
Oh, here we go.
Or are you playing a school in the city?
Yeah, we played, I don't remember
Not in New York City.
No, it wasn't. Just in it. We stayed there.
No, yeah, but why would you stay in Jersey?
Okay, just as a couple of bookkeeping elements, there is, if you are interested, just FYI, there's an extra reading, just supplemental on environmental analysis and strategic uncertainty. This is a short little book chapter. So just again, if this is a topic that you were interested in or you want to learn more about it, there's something to do there. I sometimes do a kind of a mini case collection of articles on Harley Davidson. And so we may come back around and talk about them next week. We'll just see how it goes time-wise. Next week, we're devoting, of course, to the project. So we may not. It's on Moodle, but I don't have an assignment associated with it. So if you see those, don't freak out. Don't go crazy. It is a little interesting. Over the last decade and a half, they've been dealing with a little bit of market share erosion. Harley-Davidson holds roughly 50% market share in the US market, which if you're any company, you're very happy with. It's a lot. However, those numbers have been softer, and they're dealing with an issue called aging out, which a lot of products do. So people who become a user of a product and a customer or whatnot, eventually that product, they just get older and they're no longer able to use, or they don't want to use that product any longer. It's called aging out. Now, when your market ages out, you have to have other customers there to replace them. So it's a very natural thing. It happens to a lot of different product categories. And so they're always facing this issue of aging out. Harley-Davidson has been around for over, 115 years. They started, 1903 or something like that. So they have experienced aging out for a number of generations. So absolutely not the first time they've experienced that problem. But as markets change, as you learned tonight, structures of markets change, consumer markets change. So younger riders who want lighter bikes, gender effects, more females riding as a percentage of riders, have this. And then throw into the mix this idea of an electric bikes or versus motor. And in motorcycles, there are very few market successes in EVs. They just don't exist. However, Harley came out with their Livewire a few years ago. And again, it's very, very mixed market results. They don't sell very many of them. And so this whole bunch of articles is kind of a case study on the motorcycle space and the evolving, changing pressures that they're dealing with. So again, if you were interested in any of that stuff, kind of all those fairly short readings. The other two, one deals with Ford. Ford hiring away, and this is part of your reflection for this week. So Ford, who, this might be about a year old. Yeah, it's about a year old. It's almost exactly a year old, September 12th, 2023, so I'm not wrong. Ford hires new CMO away from Toyota as it pivots towards electric vehicles. So clearly there are shifts in what Ford sees the future being in the automobile industry, to the extent where they replaced their chief marketing officer with a new marketing officer who has a lot of experience in electric vehicles. That sort of predicts, or it helps us see maybe what Ford is thinking about what their future growth might be. But it also reflects a shift and a change or a reaction to where they think the markets are going, and maybe where they think they're going to need to strengthen some of their resources. The other article is the pencil makers try to look sharp. So actually, this one doesn't happen to be in your, for the assignment, but it's fun to read. But pencil markers try to look sharp. This article is a focus of your reflection for the week, and deals with a very old product category, writing instruments, pens, pencils, and the varying degree of demand and growth that market has depending on where you are in the world. It highlights a couple different companies. Some of the companies in the article are very resistant to change, and others are adopting new technologies. And so it's really this idea of change, adopting new technologies, whether you're willing to do it or not, whether you're going to put your feet in the ground and say no, and go from there. Okay, so those are kind of some of the resources that you have. Those are things that are there available moving forward. You guys have any questions? Everything going okay as far as those reflections? It takes me a couple days to get them graded and things like that, but I do try to get onto those. I was telling Jaden, I didn't tell you this, but I do sometimes grade while I'm watching football on the weekends. And I have a few teams that I really follow closely. And if they're not doing well, then I try not to grade. Because there's a carryover, there's a halo effect. I watch all kinds of sports. The U.S. Open's going on right now. All kinds of good stuff happening. But, yeah, no, I'm joking. I do grade while I watch TV, but, all right. The last thing I want to talk about, a few minutes here, there's a technique that's highlighted in the text called space analysis. Space analysis, strategic position and action evaluation. And I kind of been interested in this. This is a new model for me. This is a model that I've seen some models like this, but I haven't been intimately familiar with this one. So I thought it was interesting. The authors felt it was worth adding to their piece. And so I did a little digging and I found a tool that's available for you. And again, this is one of these deals where it's going to tie, what I finish with will tie to a former theory that's been around since, I think, 1978, if I remember correctly, for miles and snow. So the model that was created actually relates to other things that we look at in business. And I don't know, I just thought it was a new approach to look at something. So what's going to be, and the textbook shows a little bit of a different picture. So when you look at the text, it'll look a little bit differently. But basically, you're going to have 4 different dimensions. I know it looks like a 2x2, but there's actually 4 dimensions here, not 2, going on here. One of them will be something called financial strength, and that's an internal thing. Right, an internal, inside your company. There's going to be an internal thing. We'll have some measures for that. And it's going to look a little weird. The numbers -6 and 6. And I know that looks a little odd, and it confuses me too. Again, I'm fairly new to this model. To the left, and from the origin to the left, this is another one. It's called competitive advantage. And this is going to be the degree to which your company has advantages in the marketplace. Among competitors, so competitive advantage. So financial strength, how financially sound is your company? How much advantage do you have in the marketplace? Things like market share, things like that. Those are the things that you'd look at in this dimension to the left. Okay, now to the right, we'll see something called industry strength. Now, I think the text uses the term industry attractiveness. That's why I put that there. And again, we might have this idea, is the industry growing quickly? Is the product category growing quickly? Is it something that looks good to enter or whatnot? Some things like that. And then finally, we have environmental stability. The more stable, the further down. The more turbulent, the closer to the origin. So these are 4 dimensions that make up this space. And they all start at the origin. If you are at the origin on any of these, that's a weaker position. If you're further towards the outside, that's a stronger position. And again, it looks a little weird with that negative number there, but again, that's the way the model is constructed. Okay, so where you do a bunch of data collection, you assess these 4 different areas. And then what it helps you do is define a strategy that would make sense for you to move forward with. You know, in some cases, it makes sense to be very aggressive. Like for instance, in this, if you see, like it says, if you have a lot of financial strength and the market and the industry looks very, 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 very attractive, it's almost like the BCG model where it's like a star, where you have a lot of market share or something like that, and attractive growing market, be aggressive. Other times, though, you want to be defensive and you want to protect. You don't want to take any risks. So again, sometimes you want to be risky, sometimes you don't, depending on the kind of what's going on in the conditions of the product market space that you're in. So that's what this model is all about. So just bear with me a few minutes. We'll just kind of talk a little bit about kind of what makes up the model in these 4 quadrants and kind of how that works. So this is an analysis that involves 2 different internal dimensions and then 2 different external dimensions. Those internal dimensions are the first 2 I mentioned, financial strength and then competitive advantage. The external factors are that stability, like how stable or unstable, and then how attractive the market or the industry, the industry is. Okay, so those bake up, as I mentioned, the 4 dimensions. Now, how would you go about better understanding these 4 dimensions? 2 internal, 2 external. There's a set of kind of questions here, and again, these are available on Moodle if you need those. Let me know if I'm going too slow or too fast too. I know a lot of you are taking notes, and I don't want to. I used to take notes all the time, and then I'd get home and I'd realize I only had like a third of what was actually said, and I'd have like a few doodles and a few sketches. Like, what was I doing? What was I thinking? All right. So how would we look to measure some of these things? I'll tell you what, I'm just going to kind of pull these up. I'm not going to go through and read them in a lot of detail. We don't have really a lot of time to do that. They're in the textbook, by the way, and they're also on the slide here. Okay, but for industry strength, and we're just kind of going through some of these. Again, that's an external thing. How fast is the market growing? How profitable is the market? Competitive intensity we haven't talked a lot about yet, but that describes like, is an oligopoly, is the market share dispensed across lots of competitors, highly competitive, some things like that. Barriers to entry. Are the barriers to entry high? The barriers to entry to high are high, then that can be attractive in the sense that you're not going to have a lot of new companies coming in trying to steal your thunder. Okay, so you get the idea. Those types of things are what we'll measure. We say industry strength. Okay, if you just need a kind of an idea of what that means, we can measure those. That's what we would do. Environmental stability. Okay, now what's interesting here, and again the text kind of talks about this. Remember at the very beginning of the class we had those blue circles that went around, and we said there's this macro environment trends in the economy, like what's happening in the economy. Is it growing? Is it shrinking? Is there political unrest? Is there regulatory things that are coming up? All those types of things, like an environmental scan, that's what's here. That's some of the things that could be measured in this area, environmental stability. If it is a very, very turbulent, unstable environment, it scares a lot of people because we don't know what's going to happen. But if you're very innovative and if you can capture or take advantage of change very quickly, if you're capable of doing that, then you can make you can make a lot of money. You can do a lot of things with that. So it's kind of a mixed bag. All right. Financial strength, again, we want to think about profitability. How financially sound are you? So the amount of leverage, or how levered you are, how much debt you have to savings and or earnings, cash flows, ability to liquidate, those types of things, cost of capital, your ability to access capital, those types of things. So financial strength, kind of as a whole is what we want to look at in that category, is that dimension. And then the fourth dimension, Competitive advantage, I've already mentioned this idea of market share, product quality, customer loyalty, brand strength, technological know-how, and your ability or your efficiency to execute the marketing function. Is that last area there. Okay, so we've got these 4 dimensions. We go and we measure them. And let me just kind of pull this out a little bit. There's an Excel file that's available to you on Moodle, and kind of an exercise. It might be a little small. So this is from a third-party company that has this Excel thing. I was able to get permission to use it, where we have a rating system for each of our 4 categories. So remember, there are 4 things. So competitive advantage is kind of one of those. We have the different elements there. I added over here the items from the text. So, different people will use these models differently. Some of the phraseology may be a little bit different. But the bottom line is, what we want to do is we want to get a score. And again, this range kind of matters. It's kind of weird because I know it looks negative. If it's a -1, it means it's close to the origin. If it's -6, it's further away. Okay, so again, it looks kind of weird to have a negative sign there. So 4 would be a poor, or a 1 or a 2 might be a poorer rating. A 6 or a 5 would be a strong rating. So in other words, we have a lot of market share. Our brand image is strong. Our distribution channels are strong. These all lend themselves to us having a strong competitive advantage, at least in marketing terms. Okay? We went down to another one of the 4 dimensions. Industry attractiveness, again, industry strengths. People use different terms there, either attractiveness or strength. Remember, barriers to entry. Growth rates. We're rating the attractiveness of the industry. The textbook adds some similar terms or some similar things, but imagine putting numbers to these concepts, like in rating them, and then getting a global score for how attractive that industry is. Your internal financial strength, remember that's an internal thing. So financially speaking, crack open the books, identify, kind of give yourself a score on how financially stable you are. Again, these may look a little bit different, but the textbook offers us also some other ideas. If you're going to implement this yourself, you would put your own things in there that you could gather. So that's why there are different measures there. Then finally, 4th area, environmental stability. Inflation, taxation. You can go through again the environmental scan if you wanted to look at what the text had to offer. Okay, so application. We've got 4 dimensions. These 4 dimensions are measured by using different series of different measures. We've applied a number, which is like a score, to each of those, and say we're doing this. This is like a fictitious type of a company, but you could add those in there. You can kind of, I know you can't read that, but you can just kind of see all 4 together. And then what this simple Excel sheet does is it gets an average of the 2 axes and then charts out a place for where you sort of lie. Now, where the rubber meets the road is once you fall into one of these quadrants, it helps direct you to a strategy to pursue relative to the market and the industry. So this is like a market and an industry type of analysis. It's kind of cool. That's why I thought it was interesting a little bit. And as these numbers change, it will change the different position of where that little dot is, if you will. The Cartesian plane, it'll change that XY axis point, and it'll tell you a different strategy to go in depending on, again, your inputs here. Okay, so it's kind of an interesting application. I thought it was kind of cool to look at. back to kind of some of these strategies. If we were to look at this again, the conservative is a type of strategy to hold. The aggressive, it's a type of strategy, kind of where you're put your resources and things like that are kind of what we're talking about here. So the aggressive position, right? Strong financial strength, remember that upper right-hand quadrant, and high growth potential or attractive market or attractive industry. You're well positioned if you're in that quadrant to be super aggressive, to take risks, to do lots of R&D, to develop new products, right? You want to be super aggressive and be able to take care of what you can take care of there. Okay, that's that type of firm. That's what the model tells you your strategic action should be. If you have a lot of financial strength and you can take advantage of opportunities in a growing market, then that's what you would do. Again, I mentioned this idea that there's another typology. It's called Miles and Snow. It was written in 1978 by two authors, one Miles, one Snow. This type of character is somebody called a pioneer. And I'll come back and just mention that one more time before we're done. Okay, the conservative square, strong financial growth, and a stable external environment is that other category over there. A conservative approach would be one where it's down. One where, if I have it correctly, it'd be one where you want to limit risk, risk avoidance, prioritize stability and efficiency, optimize your existing resources at the expense of growth opportunities. Okay, there's a term in Miles and Snow, so this approach is a lot more defensive. Sometimes we might also call this an analyzer, and this would be, again, in terminology that we'll see in a moment from Miles and Snow. Defender or analyzer. But that's the type of posture they take. The text doesn't talk a lot about the application of these strategies. It just kind of talks about what they are. Defensive strategies. Defensive strategies, protecting your market share, reducing costs, strengthening customer loyalty. When you take a defensive position, you want to protect, right? Makes sense. That kind of makes sense a little bit. But you want to limit risk. The way we limit risk is by spreading risk out. That's typically how you do it. If you had a stock portfolio and you wanted to limit or minimize risk, you'd spread risk out. That's how we do it. If we are looking to do business venture, the way we spread risk out is by getting other investors, by getting other people involved. And we spread risk out so that everybody experiences risk, not just you. So that's kind of this idea of mitigating or diversifying risks. You want to get rid of your risky products and keep your good ones. That's a defender by Miles and Snow's typology. Okay, the last type of strategic kind of action is something called competitive postures. This is one where you have a strong competitive advantage, and also there's favorable industry conditions. So innovate, invest in marketing and branding, look to outperform competitors and things like that. For some reason, I feel like I'm off a page, but we're getting there. Yeah, okay. All right, the last square, the last quadrant. Now, again, we'll go back to a picture, a little bit of a picture, kind of see where these guys are. This is actually a screen capture of that Excel file that we just had with our thing in there. I mentioned these ideas, this pioneer, analyzer, defender characters that we kind of talked about. We also looked at the competitor place was the very last one we looked at. The first was the aggressive character, the aggressive company, because they can take advantage of market opportunities. The defensive one here, the defensive space, you just want to protect what you have. Going back to Miles and Snow, 4 types of characters or 4 types of companies are described. I mentioned pioneers, sometimes they're called prospectors. Pioneers were prospectors, defenders, analyzers, and reactors. And so again, this was created a decade and a half before the model. The pioneer or the prospector often looks for businesses in multiple product categories. They look to change rapidly. They look to adapt rapidly to a market. They accept lots of risk that others simply won't take. And they enjoy dynamic, changing industries. That's that prospector, that pioneer. Right? And again, it's that quadrant in the upper right-hand space that would probably fall under, which is kind of a neat overlay. The defender often has they are what they are. They want to protect market share. They want to do defensive. Again, later in the term, we'll talk about defensive strategies, flanking strategies, and different ways we create barriers to help protect our market share. Maybe a follower, they like to limit the risk. They protect share at the risk of growth. So again, you kind of think about this space down here, and also the conservative area as well as being a defender-like person. The analyzer or the thinker is a type of company that will be passive, but if they see a great opportunity, they'll take it, right? So they'll be protective, but when the right opportunity comes up, they'll aggressively attack it. That's what analyzers do. They're really fun. They're really interesting kind of characters to be thinking about. They would definitely be in this space over here. They're more conservative than the aggressor or the pioneer or the prospector, but they do so with a very strategic plan. But they're not sitting back doing nothing. They're aggressive. So space matrix. It's kind of a cool thing. Now, Miles and Snow have one more character, which doesn't fall anywhere. And nobody ever wants to be the reactor. And again, this is one of those, they had 4 different types of companies when this theory was built. And the reactor was the last one. And there are some companies, very few, and none will admit it, they only act when they have to. They get pushed because of turbulence in the environment, because the markets shift, because competitors do something, there's disruptive technologies. Something happens in the marketplace that forces them to change. And they do so. And they don't really want to, but they do so because they have to, or they'll go out of business. That's a reactor. And they're really not shown on this depiction much at all. So it's kind of one of these, if you were going to be a reactor, you might be way down here somewhere, maybe over here. You may or may not have financial strength, but you definitely be just kind of at the, I don't even know where you'd be. I don't know that you're on here. I don't know that you are. But be that as it may, I wanted to wrap up tonight with just this introduction of this tool. You have access to this Excel if you want to play around with it. If you want to, as you read the text, take a look at that and kind of just see what it looks like. That'd be fine to do. Tonight we covered product markets, which is a really big topic. I'm glad we did. We reviewed some of last week. We talked a little bit about what firms should be doing. Again, great question. Should big firms, big organizations who have a lot of power be allowed to, or should they? Do they have, is part of their role to influence a social domain? It's a big question. Anybody who says, oh, that was big business, the answer would be no, they don't have a role. They shouldn't be in it, I guess. But on the other hand, somebody might say, when there is a catastrophe and bottled water or canned water is needed, you know who the largest supplier of canned water is? During times of need, during emergencies, hurricanes, you know who? Anheuser-Busch. They switch production lines and they can water. They ship it out. A heck of a lot of it. They have the power to do it. They can. So they do. Right? Why not? So that's good. I don't know. I like the other liquid they put in it too, but I'll drink water. So, all right. You guys have any questions? Or there's a few minutes if you want to meet as groups or whatever, whatnot. Have a good evening. Look forward to next week. Let me know if you have any questions or problems.
Thank you.
It's not,